Good day, everyone, and Assalamu alaikum. On behalf of Global CIO Forum, F5, and Thales, I welcome all the online attendees to this virtual summit on Extend Strong Authentication to Your Business Apps. In this virtual summit, we will learn how to combine access management and strong authentication, allowing organizations to balance security with end-user convenience. We will learn how to use a scalable cloud solution that promotes secure access through easy-to-configure access policies. And with this, businesses can meet compliance requirements using a solution with security and identity protection. Leading us through today's virtual summit are Bethlehem, Director of Product Marketing, Identity, and Access Management at Thales; Yasser Al-Mashad, Cybersecurity Specialist at F5; and Serge Ghanem, Technical Solutions Manager at Exclusive Networks Middle East. At the end of their presentations, there will be a quiz for all the attendees with prizes for the top 3 winners. So we request all of you to stay tuned right till the end to take part in the quiz. And we look forward to your engagement at that time. Before we begin this event, here are some short housekeeping rules. All attendees are on, so please do post your questions for the speakers through the chat option, and they'll be happy to take all questions at the end of this session. So to begin this summit, I'd like to invite Dana Bethlehem to begin this virtual. So Dana, over to you. Please do begin this session.
Thank you so much, Arun, and thank you everybody for joining us for today's webinar, and to our hosts, Exclusive, and to my colleagues at F5. Let me just share my screen and we can get started. One moment. Awesome. Okay. Well, allow me to introduce myself. I'm a Product Marketing Director for Telus' Identity and Access Management portfolio. And today I'll be discussing SafeNet Trusted Access, Telus' cloud-based access management and authentication solution, and how we integrate with F5 to offer you best-of-breed protection for hybrid environments. So the ability to protect both your cloud applications and your on-premises applications by combining between SafeNet Trusted Access and F5. A very short introduction about Telus. Some of you may have heard about us. Telus is quite a large organization, more than 80,000 employees worldwide. We have a global footprint covering a very broad range of industries, from telecom to satellites to defense to transportation. And the product line that I represent today is part of Telus' Cloud Protection and Licensing business unit, which has its focus on enterprise cybersecurity. So we're also very honored to have a large presence in the Middle East, and we have quite a broad customer base for our solutions in the Middle East as well. In terms of Telus' identity protection portfolio, going beyond the enterprise solution which I will be presenting today, we do have a very broad range of solutions that address multiple use cases and go-to-market segments. As I mentioned, the portfolio that I represent focuses primarily on cybersecurity for enterprise use cases, but we do share technological building blocks with our parallel portfolios that deal with government identity protection, government identities, banking, e-banking protection, so the ability of consumers to access e-banking applications securely. And while, as I mentioned, we do have separate go-to-markets, we also do share numerous common technology building blocks, and so we're able to very much leverage Telus's broad technological base and abilities for a very broad range of solutions. When we think about access management and the need to secure employees' ability to securely access applications, to my mind, and I think that there would be broad agreement that in today's environments, most organizations are still very much in hybrid IT mode. Even though we have seen over the past year, as a result of COVID-19 and the need to accelerate cloud adoption, we do see that many organizations may be accelerating cloud adoption, but that for the most part, we have some key applications being delivered from on-premises, from the data center, as well as an expanding range of cloud-based applications to which employees need to access on a daily basis. Telus recently did some research. We publish an annual research report on security, covering both encryption and access trends. And what we did discover is that 60% of respondents who were IT professionals believe that unprotected infrastructure and unprotected applications are the biggest target for cyber attacks. 94% believe that data breaches have the biggest influence over their security and access management policies and strategy. Having said that, we don't want to be in a position where we need to react and quickly scramble to implement cybersecurity once we have experienced a breach. I think the name of the game for all CISOs and IT professionals is preemptive and being proactive about access security in order not to reach that point of not being able to sleep at night because of concern over a breach. And then we also see that 80% of respondents said that access management solutions and the ability to protect both VPNs and access gateways as well as cloud applications is very much key to being able to provide, to protect their enterprises and reduce the threat of breach. Against these data points is the knowledge that more than 69% of data breaches are ultimately caused by compromised credentials, either through malware or through phishing attacks or through brute force attacks. So the first item of information that cyber criminals want to find is actually credentials. Once they have credentials, they really have the keys to the kingdom. But what we do know is that unencrypted data is also poses a huge risk to organizations. So it's imperative to make sure that all your data is encrypted, so that if cyber criminals do manage to get into an organization, at least that data would be encrypted. Telus Access Management and Authentication portfolio consists of three main pillars, which are designed to secure access and prevent unauthorized individuals from getting into your data and logging into your application. The first pillar is policy-based access. So the ability to set policies and enforce those policies, I'm talking about access policies at the access point, and ensure that only the right individual and the right individual is accessing an application. The second pillar is authentication. When we talk about authentication, we talk about, I'm referring to adaptive, contextual authentication, multi-factor authentication, and a very broad range of authentication mechanisms, which we'll be discussing a bit later in this presentation. But authentication is an integral part of an access policy, because an access policy really determines what level of authentication and what method of authentication is going to be used for the user and for a specific application. The third pillar is single sign-on. So really the ability to combine the convenience of single sign-on with the security of authentication, and this too is integrated into an access policy. So when we think of access policies, we think of a policy that takes into account an authentication method, session management, single sign-on, all with the goal of enforcing the right level of access security and the right level of convenience for a user when they need to access multiple applications each and every day. Let's take a look at how a policy-based access works with SafeNet Trusted Access. SafeNet Trusted Access is Thales' cloud-based access management and authentication platform. There are several components to SafeNet Trusted Access, as I mentioned in the previous slide. But when we talk about access management, we talk it relies first and foremost on the ability to serve as a central identity identity provider for applications that rely on SafeNet Trusted Access to ascertain and verify the identity of users who are accessing those applications. We federate with a very large range of target applications. So you can see here, of course, F5. We federate with F5 based on SAML application, and I believe that my colleagues Yasser and Serge will be showing and talking about that and how we federate later on in this session. We are able to support individual users and groups of users relying on an LDAP user store. We integrate with the user store. And then SafeNet Trusted Access actually sets the policy and provides inputs. So once the IT admin has federated with the application, has determined which groups are governed by the policy, and has selected the policy attributes, whether these include the type and method of application to be used, the duration of the session management, how frequently users will be required to authenticate during a session, which users and which applications are actually governed by this policy. We're able subsequently to also understand through extensive reporting and monitoring capabilities which users accessed which applications using which authentication methods. And this is critical for ongoing monitoring of your security posture. And it's also very important to be able to provide a detailed audit trail of all access events that are taking place within your environment. Finally, an IT manager has the ability to adjust those access policies and really fine-tune them to address the security needs of the organization, but while still taking into account the convenience of end users. For example, if there's evidence that an end user is being required to authenticate too frequently to an application, and this somehow impedes their ability to work smoothly during the day, we have the ability to very easily adjust the access policy governing that end user so that they may be required to authenticate less frequently. The beauty of this policy-based access is really the ability to balance the right level of security by enforcing the right level of authentication with user convenience. You can see that we can support hundreds of applications through a range of federation mechanisms, either through SAML, through OIDC. We also support radius-based applications from the cloud. So that's a huge advantage, of being able to support a very broad range of applications through template-based federation wizards. It really makes for IT admins setting up our solution and running it on a daily basis, the ability to federate very, very easily through template-based wizards means that you can scale and protect applications very easily. So if today you're supporting 2 cloud applications and tomorrow you need to support 10 cloud-based applications, it's very, very easy and to simply federate with those additional applications and add them to your existing policies. One of the key abilities of SafeNet Trusted Access to balance that end user convenience with security is our support of Smart Single Sign-On. Smart Single Sign-On triggers authentication only when defined by the policy. So depending on the access scenario and depending what the profile of our end user, the sensitivity of the application that end user is logging onto, you can really determine that a user would have to authenticate frequently or less frequently, and which level of authentication is triggered, and by so doing really reduce the authentication burden for your end user while still maintaining security. Single sign-on offers an alternative concept of single sign-on to regular single sign-on. Smart single sign-on offers an alternative to just regular single sign-on. Often with a regular single sign-on, the user gains access to an application and then is subsequently allowed to access all of their applications relying on the initial single sign-on authentication assertion that was provided at the beginning. Smart single sign-on is more secure in that it validates the identity of the user each and every time they log on to a new application. SafeNet Trusted Access then verifies the policy. And if the policy or the posture of the user has changed, our platform will trigger additional authentication to make sure that there's been no degradation in the user authentication. By offering Smart Single Sign-On, we're actually able to continuously verify the identity of the user as they hop from application to application to application, and by so doing, ensure that access security is maintained throughout the day and while the end user is logging onto numerous applications. So by doing so, we're really able to balance convenience with security and not simply rely on that initial authentication that was provided by the user the first time they logged onto their application. SafeNet Trusted Access supports a very broad range of authentication mechanisms. And this does allow your organization and IT managers to determine the exact level of authentication that is appropriate to a user based on their profile within the organization and based on the type of application that they're accessing. I'll give you an example. If you have a user in the finance department who is accessing payroll information, you want to make sure that that user is governed by very strong access policy. So you may want to determine that user needs to authenticate with strong authentication each and every time they access the payroll application. However, if you have another user, just a regular user, who needs to access a ticketing, a support ticketing platform or a support ticketing application, perhaps that user, that type of information is less sensitive, so you might allow that user to authenticate once at the beginning and maintain that authentication session for several hours without requiring them to re-authenticate. So the ability to support a very broad range of authentication mechanisms really does allow organizations to fine-tune security and ensure that security doesn't become a burden and is only applied when necessary. SafeNet Trusted Access, in the same vein, supports certificate-based authentication, so it's possible to apply and to include certificate-based authentication in access policies. And this would be relevant for many organizations for whom security and high assurance PKI authentication is very important, either in order to comply with regulations or perhaps to protect IP. We also support FIDO solutions. So we offer two FIDO devices. One is a combined PKI FIDO device, and one is a FIDO to authentication USB device. So again, that allows organizations to really maintain a high level of security and also extend authentication to the cloud. We support push authentication. So this is a very convenient way of authenticating when a user has an OTP application on their mobile device and simply has to approve an authentication request by tapping on the OTP push notification that is delivered to their mobile device. So you can see that by offering such a broad range of authentication mechanisms, we're really able to address broad range of security situations and also optimize security and also optimize convenience for the end user. All of these authentication mechanisms that I've mentioned are also available in passwordless mode. When it comes to setting a policy within SafeNet Trusted Access, we can actually remove the need to provide a Windows password and rely solely on a second factor of authentication. And by so doing, increase convenience and optimize convenience even further. So when using passwordless authentication, a user would be required to provide their username, and then the policy would enforce the type or authentication mechanism that has been defined in the access policy by SafeNet Trusted Access. This could be certificate-based authentication, it could be push OTP, it could be regular OTP, it could be push OTP combined with biometric, device biometric. So you can see that the passwordless authentication that we offer doesn't compromise security in any way. What it does do is elevate convenience for the end user because it saves them having to type in their Windows password. Another function and capability of SafeNet Trusted Access to really optimize convenience is the whole token enrollment experience. We allow users to enroll their tokens in an on-demand way. So a user gets an email and has a grace period for enrolling their token and without being locked out of the application, which has been governed by the SafeNet Trusted Access policy. The entire token provisioning and token enrollment experience is done with one click, and again is very convenient and is very intuitive. So it allows organizations to apply multi-factor authentication in a very easy and convenient way to hundreds and even thousands of end users with just a simple click. Also, SafeNet Trusted Access is fully customizable. This allows organizations to actually customize the login screen, to customize and localize from a language perspective all messages, all email messages, applications, the OTP application, as well as the actual login screen that a user sees. So this is also makes it much more amenable and intuitive for end users to see a customized login screen. It's also a very important security aspect, because having a customized login screen really does reduce the risk of phishing attacks, because phishing attacks, especially those directed at Office 365, rely on cloning the Office 365 login screen. And organizations who use customized login screens indicate to their users that if they haven't arrived at the customized screen, then they shouldn't actually provide their credentials and log in using their username and password, as well as the authentication mechanism, to a non-customized screen. So this is also an additional measure that protects against phishing attacks. SafeNet Trusted Access allows organizations to keep track of all access events through extensive reporting, dashboards, and monitoring. So this allows you to meet security regulations by really showing who is accessing which application, what authentication mechanism was used, what access policy was applied. We also integrate seamlessly with CIEM applications and logging applications, so that organizations can get a broader picture of all of their access and security events. And in addition to providing that audit trail of who is accessing which application when, we're also able to really enforce the right access policy in a way that complies with regulations. Many different countries have different regulations, but one global regulation that really applies to many organizations is PCI DSS. So I'll use that as an example. I'm sure you're familiar with the fact that PCI DSS requires multi-factor authentication for all remote and all local access as well. So using SafeNet Trusted Access, you would be able to set up a policy that includes all applications governed by PCI DSS, so all applications that hold credit card data, for example, and that would be applied to all users who access those applications. And then you would be able to use that policy to enforce multi-factor authentication for those applications that need to comply with PCI DSS. That's just one example. It could be applied, you could set up a policy for any regulation depending on the authentication requirement specified by that regulation. Ultimately, SafeNet Trusted Access is designed to prevent breaches by protecting the access point as close to the user as possible. We all know that the login point is the first point of vulnerability in distributed computing environments. So by being able to protect the login point, we're able to mitigate the risk of breach and really protect all applications and data centers, whether they reside on premises or in the cloud. We're able to help organizations make their cloud transformations much more in a much more scalable and flexible way by using SafeNet Trusted Access's policy engine. You saw how easy it was to federate and to set up policies. These policies can apply to cloud applications, and we'll see subsequently in this session how they can also be applied to on-premises applications through our integration with F5. So this is how we protect hybrid environments and really allow organizations to protect their on-premises applications while still being able to protect and scale securely in the cloud. And we're able to simplify compliance by enforcing the right access policy for the regulation and by producing the audit trail that proves who is accessing which application and how. And then they're really showing a record of access events. So ultimately, SafeNet Trusted Access and F5 Big IP APM really does offer full protection for hybrid environments by being able to protect applications at the access point in both on-premises and cloud environments. Before I wrap up, just a very quick summary of where our credentials in the identity and access management world. So we have been in the identity and access management business for 30 years. You know, we help more than 25,000 customers and millions of users to securely access applications on a daily basis. We have customers worldwide in every corner of the globe, including in the Middle East. We're used by governments, federal agencies, the world's largest banks, and the world's largest IT organizations to make sure that their data and their applications are protected at the access point. I'm now going to hand over to Yasser from F5, who will tell us a bit about F5 and about how SafeNet Trusted Access integrates with F5 to protect hybrid environments. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dana. Very informative presentation. Let me share my slides. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here on this call. My name is Yasser Al-Mashad. I work as a security specialist for F5, covering the Middle East and Africa regions. In this presentation, we're going to take you through overview on F5 security, and we'll focus on the identity and access management solution specifically. At the end, we will cover the integration piece with the Thales STA solution. So let's get started. Let me first start with the importance of the applications today. Now, as more and more companies embark on digital transformations, they quickly recognize that applications are the most important assets they have today, but also a great source of risk. Applications was the initial targets in 53% of the security breaches which were surveyed by the F5 Labs, the threat intelligence team, where user identities were the initial targets in 33% of those security breaches. So these together constitute 86% of where most of the attacks are happening today. And if you think about it, this makes perfect sense. If you try to access any type of data today, be it financial banking data or social media data or corporate data, usually you will be using an application to access this data. And most probably this application will require some sort of user identities or authentication to unlock the access to this data. So if the attacker is able to compromise the application or the user identity, he can get access to the data. And the data is the most important thing that we are trying to protect today. Now, these security breaches continue to happen despite that organizations are investing in security controls. So they deploy different security controls, they increase their security budget, they do the measures that require to be compliant with the regulations. However, these security incidents and the breaches, they continue to happen. And the question that we ask ourselves, why? One of the reasons is that because many people, they still approach security with the old mindset that focus on building walls and barriers around the applications and services inside the data center. And really this method of securing the traditional network perimeter is no longer sufficient. And why? First, because applications continue to move to the multi-cloud environments. Many organizations have their applications deployed in different places. It can be on-prem, but there are others can be in the cloud. And when they go to the cloud, they usually adopt the multi-cloud approach. So they might have different applications running in different cloud providers. And also the number of the mobile users are increasing. So this all create this new challenge of securing the application access. Now, securing application access is already a complicated process when it's done on-prem in the past. It only gets more complicated when these applications are moving to the cloud. So now the security admins have this challenge of how we can secure access to the applications which running all over in these different environments, in the multi-cloud environments as a service, and some of them are still on-prem, and how we can secure the access to the users who are also not sitting inside the corporate anymore. Instead, they are accessing from their home or while they are traveling around the world. And I think this is becoming more clear after the COVID-19 outbreak, where now most of the users are accessing these services remotely. So this, of course, requires a different approach to of the identity and access management. Let's see how F5 help. So F5 provide lots of different security solutions. This can be categorized into three main categories. First is the access management, which is the focus of the today's session. And this is all about how to ensure the authorized and authenticated access to the applications, and how we can also do the single sign-on, and how we can integrate with the identity as a service providers like Thales STA to enforce these policies. The next type of solutions are the infrastructure security solutions. These usually the F5 security services that run on the network level. Examples of those are the network-based DDoS protections, the F5 SSL orchestrator, which take care of SSL decryption or interception for inbound and outbound traffic, and steer this traffic to the security devices to be inspected for malicious activities. And the third is the application layer solutions, and this is basically where F5 have products like the web application firewalls that protect the web applications against web application threats like OWASP top 10 attacks, layer 7 DDoS attacks, bot and automations and fraud attacks, so etc. etc. So in summary, the F5 provide a collections of application services. Now, when F5 really sit in front of the application, between the user and the application, it provides these different application services to your application. every application requires some type of application services. These services can be application delivery services like load balancing, health monitoring, SSL offloading. It can be also application security services like web application firewalling, access management, bot protections, DDoS protections, fraud, etc. And most importantly, we provide these application services for both traditional and modern applications. For example, for traditional application, F5 Big IP can do the normal EDC functionality as a load balancer. For modern applications that probably running as a container inside a Kubernetes cluster or an OpenShift cluster, we can also provide similar functionality through the ingress controller. And F5 provide all of these services on top of our platform, which can be either Big IP for traditional applications or Nginx, which is a platform for modern applications. Now let's focus more on the access management service specifically. So the access management services are provided through a product called APM or Access Policy Manager. The Access Policy Manager is a product that have a collection of features that take care of the user authentication. So we integrate with many with many identity as a service providers, including the Thales STA. We also can do the continuous poster check, so we can fingerprint or check the endpoints to make sure they are compliant before we allow them access. We can also trigger step-up authentication. So when the user try to access a specific part of the application that we mark as sensitive, we can basically request the user to do a higher level of authentication. And we can do all of that because F5 sit right in front of the application and it can see every single request. So we can do a per request policy that based on request, we can take different action. If the device was compliant with the poster check at the beginning of the session, and during the session, anything has changed, we can detect that in the next request because we monitor every single request. So this is a huge advantage of having F5 sitting in front of your application. Now, there are three key, there are many use cases of the APM, but these are the top 3 use cases. The SSL VPN is the oldest and still very popular use case, and this is all about remote access. This is a network remote access, not really about applications. So this is a typical SSL VPN that allow you to connect virtually inside the network, and then you can access many resources. Many people are still using SSL VPN, especially after the COVID-19 outbreak. The second use case is the web access management. This is basically the traditional use case, since F5 anyway sit in front of this application to do all of these application services which we talk about, like load balancing and WAF, etc. It's very easy to apply an access policy for that application as well. And the third is the identity proxy. And the third is the identity proxy. And this is basically where F5 integrates with the identity as a service provider and redirect all the users to be authenticated on the identity as a service provider. And the F5 job is to complete the second part of the authentication, which basically enforcing the policy, validating the authentications, and ensure the single sign-on to these applications. So let's talk now in more detail about how we can simplify that complicated use case of the access management that we presented earlier. Now, in the scenarios where companies adopt the multi-cloud environments and they start to have applications running in different environments, like in this case, customers have applications running on-prem, other applications running in the cloud. It could be multi-cloud, so they have some application maybe running in AWS, another application running in Azure, and some applications in Google, and so on. And then they also might have SaaS-based applications like Office 365 or Salesforce or Concur, etc., etc. Now, the old way to do the authentication access management, it's not really going to be sufficient anymore. And the best way to do the access management in this case is to centralize all the user identity in one place. And this is where the identity as a service shine and show their value. So identity as a service take care of the user authentications and user identity, all right? And for the on-premise application, which is usually a critical application or custom application, examples like SAP applications and Oracle application, which is not really easy to move to the cloud. This is where the F5 can sit in front of these, which may probably already sitting in front of this application, and they can enable the customer to utilize the modern authentications provided by the identity as a service and provide those to these legacy old applications. Now, F5 also can be deployed in the cloud, the same use case. So F5 can be deployed in front of any application. You have many customers having their applications running in AWS or Azure or Google, and they have F5 deployed in front of them to do the same job. And the reason why they do that, because many people, they invested a lot in their security policies for their on-prem applications. And when they want to move these applications to the public cloud, they want to also move it with the same level of the security. The other also challenge that people have is the consistency of the security. Now, when applications have different places to live, they might have using web application firewall from, let's say, from the F5 here on-prem, but when they go to public cloud, let's go to AWS, they might be tempted to use the cloud native basic WAF service provided by that provider. But the problem is that because now these are two different products, and they might tomorrow want to move this application to another public cloud environment like Azure, which means they need to recreate the WAF policies again. And this is basically create that inconsistency. So what we provide here is that we provide a consistent application services for the customer applications, be it on-prem or in the public cloud. And of course, link all of that to the identity as a service for the authentications and authorization. Now let's take this in more details. For the use case of the APM with the Thales STA, usually we integrate using the SAML protocol, which is an identity federation protocol. This is basically what allows the customers to centralize all of their user identities in the identity as a service provider, which is the Thales STA in this case. And whenever the user try to access any of these on-prem application, which might be using an old authentication methods, they could be non-secure or less secure authentication methods. This is where the F5 can actually redirect these users to be authenticated with a stronger authentication method using the Thales STA authentications, and then we can do the single sign-on after that to these applications using either Kerberos or header-based or other methods depending on the backend application. Let's take this in more detail and let's see exactly how the flow. And this will be demonstrated to you by Serge in the next slot, who is going to show you a technical demo of how this thing is actually going to work in practice. So usually the user who can be sitting on-prem or can be a remote user trying to access an on-prem application that is protected by the F5 APM. So F5 sitting in front of this application, doing probably many other application services like the one which we cover, like load balancing, application firewalling, DDoS protections, SSL offloading, etc. And one of these services is verifying and validating the authentication. So when this request comes from that user, the F5 will realize that this user, this is a new session. I don't know this user yet. So it will be redirected to the Thales STA, which acts as a SAML identity provider. So this is the SAML protocol integration. Now the SAML STA, the Thales STA going to authenticate the user, and they can provide multi-factor authentication. They can do whatever that is possible to be done or using the STA from all of these advanced authentication methods. And once the user authenticated, he will be given a SAML assertion. This SAML assertion will be redirected back to the F5 APM. The F5 APM first going to validate the SAML assertion to make sure that this user is really authenticated and they have a valid assertion. And also this SAML assertion, which is an XML document, can include many additional information that F5 APM can extract, and then based on this information, it can take additional actions. Like, for example, we can do single sign-on using different methods based on the information that is available in this assertion. So this basically summarizes the integration that we have with the Thales STA using SAML. Now, and finally, the F5 Trusted Access is just one product. As we covered a few times already, the value of the F5 is that we provide today the broadest application services, being application delivery services or application security services for your application. So by sitting in front of the application, we can do all of these functionalities, and that, of course, include the trusted access management. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Serge to show you the demo that he prepared for this integration. Serge, over to you.
Thank you, Yasser. Thank you for this informative session. Thank you, Dana, as well. First of all, good afternoon, everyone. We have seen the demonstration, or sorry, the presentation of the Thales STA alone, as well as the F5 Big IP APM functionality and features, and how they can make sure that the user is securely authenticated to any type of application, either on the cloud or on-prem. So first of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Serge Ghanem, and I'm Technical Solutions Manager at Exclusive Networks Middle East. And during my session, I'll be demonstrating how can we benefit from the solution joint explained by Yasser and Dana during their sessions. But now things gonna be more in action and demonstrating more technicalities. Just to do a small recap on the slide that Yasser was showing, which gonna be mainly where I'm gonna be demonstrating through some technicalities or showing the integration between the STA and the F5 APM. So as it was mentioned earlier, when the user is trying to connect to an on-prem application, let's say, which is sitting behind the F5, the Thales STA will be acting as a SAML IDP to validate the user identity authentication and authorization. And the F5 APM will be acting as a SAML SP to proxify the SAML assertion to these apps, or the SAML assertion that was sent by the SAML IDP, which is the Thales, to the F5 SAML SP. Obviously, the user authentication as well, validation, will be completed through the SAML assertion that I mentioned previously, which is shared between the STA IDP and the F5 APM SP, as well as with the multi-factor authentication token provided by the STA solution to the user on his mobile pass, one of the push authentication feature that Dana was showing. We're going to be using it during the presentation. And this will help him to authenticate as well to securely to the application. So let's see now. Let's see now how it's done through a small demo. Let me just share my browser screen. So as you can see here, guys, you can see two different interface. One which is the IDP interface, or which is the STA interface administration GUI. So I'm gonna be logging in here as an administrator to manage my IDP in that area. And here, even for my administration access, I'm gonna require to put my passcode, which is showing on my mobile now in front of me. One. And now I'm in front of the STA interface. Okay, here where I can manage my STA, creating policies and creating different applications that gonna be accessed. Some of them you can see modern app, as well as the F5 APM will be created as an application, so we can add it. It's listed in the applications already, so we can create the F5 APM as a net SAML SP for us. So once created, we need to download the metadata file from the APM, from the SafeNet Trusted Access. This metadata file will be used when we are creating the SP and IDP on the F5. On the other side, let's go to the interface, admin interface of the F5. Where we're gonna start by creating, or we have already created, the components. Really, it's very easy, guys, to integrate both solutions. So first, we go to the access part of the F5, which is the APM module sitting on the F5 platform. So we create our SP, which is F5. So it's very easy. We indicate that our SP is the portal. It's our portal f5.f5.com access, which is a virtual server or listener sitting on our SAML SP, which is the F5 APM. Once done, we need to create as well the external IDP, which is in our case the STA. Once created, we import. So here, usually, once we create it, we import the metadata file. We import the metadata file that we downloaded from the STA, and we import it here. Once imported, we need, of course, to bind both solution. We need to bind both solution, or the SP and IDP together. Once binded, we export the metadata, and we go to the metadata of the SAML SP, and we just imported here. So we just import the metadata of the SAML SP, which is the APM here. Once done, the full integration between the SAML, between the STA and the APM is completed. The federation integration is done. So obviously, we need to create some application which are sitting on-prem to showcase how the user is going to authenticate, be authorized to SAML authentication, and then he's going to access one of the application. One of these applications that are on-prem are called web top links in the configuration. One is called example app. One is called on-prem app. Once created, we need to create a profile, and this profile is gonna be mapped. This profile it's gonna be mapped where the user is gonna start his access, where he's gonna validate his SAML authentication, and he's gonna be able to access these applications. So once this profile is done, we are gonna be mapping it to a listener. The listener that I created before, this listener is represented here by an IP address, but obviously previously it was shown as a portal.f5demo.com. So we add this STA access profile here, and now we are ready to show two different scenarios of integration. First, let's do the SP initiated session using APM, the portal access. So let's say we go to portal.f5demo.com. So here I'm going to the SP. Automatically, the SP is redirecting me to the IDP. The IDP is asking me to log in successfully. So I can see here on my IDP that I need to put my username first. And once I put my username, my phone is notifying me that I need to approve through the push OTP authentication, or even I can use a passcode, which is showing as well in front of me on my phone. But here I'm gonna just click approve. Once approved, I'm gonna be redirected to the portal of the company, where I'm gonna be able to see two different applications. And these applications are sitting on-prem. I'm gonna click on one of them. I'm gonna be automatically, and this is a dummy, by the way, application, and it's directly opening the on-prem app. Another method is while I'm accessing. First, I need to kill the session here. So while I'm accessing through initiating the access through the IDP. So let me first kill the session. So usually the administrator of the IDP, or sorry, the STA administrator will provide a user portal access for all the users of the company. And this user portal is giving like that. It's as the URL. They copy and share it with all the user portal where they can validate their username and passcode, and they can authenticate through the user access portal of the STA. Okay, I have already this link here. So it should be user portal. Okay, logging in. I'm gonna put my username already is here. Okay, I got my passcode. Approve on my phone. Once I approve it, I'm gonna be in front now of the STA user access portal, where not only F5 APM is being shown to be accessed, or F5 APM that is protecting the on-prem applications, as well as we can see the cloud-based application or software as a service cloud-based application, where we can click on them as well and be redirected. But to show the integration, we're gonna just click on the F5 APM application, or the SP, where we're gonna be redirected again to identify ourselves, and I approve here on my passcode, and I'm gonna be in front of the F5 portal F5 portal access, where I'm gonna be as well able to access any of the corporate application on-prem. So here with F5 and Thales STA, we're gonna be, of course, able to see all the active sessions, know more details about the user, what he's doing, where he's logged in, all these things, as well as with a SafeNet Trusted Access. As mentioned, Dana, we can see as well all the access logs all the users and how they are being connected and active, and what they are being able to access, as well as based on the policy applied by the STA. So we can know a lot of details about the user access and all these things. So with that, I finished my demonstration about the integration between the F5 APM behaving as a SAML SP, as well as the Thales STA behaving as an IDP, integrated together and giving us this perfect solution, which can be implemented everywhere. Thank you for listening. With that, I hand over to my colleague, Malika. Thank you.
Thank you, Serge. Good evening, everyone. This is Malika. I am heading the marketing for Exclusive Networks Middle East. First of all, I would like to thank you all for joining us today. I would also like to thank F5 and Thales team for all the support, especially our wonderful presenters and, of course, GEC Media team. I won't take much of your time, but I can bet that this is the most interesting segment for today's session, because you all have the opportunity to be a part of a quiz hosted on Kahoot, where top 3 winners will be entitled for an Amazon voucher or a coffee machine. Exclusive Networks marketing team will contact the 3 winners after the webinar in order to plan the logistics. And before we start, let me explain the rules. This quiz is, of course, meant for customers only who are end users and present in this webinar, based in Middle East only. And this quiz is based on not just the accuracy of your answers, but also on your speed, which means the faster you select the right answer, the higher are your chances to win. So be quick while also being right at selecting your answer. There are 5 simple questions and you have 20 seconds to answer each question. I have with me Ryan and Vase from Exclusive Marketing team who will help me drive this quiz, and they'll contact the winners later. So let's get started, and to get started, log into www.kahoot.it and you must enter the game pin. So I encourage you all to please log in, and it's just nobody's going to catch anyone for wrong answers. It's just for fun. So please do participate. Log on to kahoot.it and enter the game pin you see. The game pin is, I'm just repeating, as you can see on the screen, 4312126. So once you log in and enter the game pin, make sure you enter your email and full name. Please don't log in with initials, because we will not be able to contact you if we don't have your full name. So please start logging in. We are waiting. Okay, so we see some registrations. We are waiting. We have so many attendees and really wish to see maximum of you be a part of this. I'm sure we could do better. We have so many wonderful attendees. I recommend you all to please participate. And again, this is open only for our customers from Middle East. So please log in. I really request you all to please log into www.kahoot.it and join us. We are not going to catch anyone for wrong answers. I'll wait for another 2 minutes. Friends, I request you to please log in. You have the opportunity to choose between an Amazon voucher or a coffee machine. Don't you want to win something? Okay. We'll wait for another minute and then we'll start with the ones we have. I would once again encourage you all to log on to kahoot.it and be a part of this quiz. Okay. All right, so I think we'll start now. So be ready to answer quickly and accurately. The first question, exclusive networks is, and here are the options. You have the last 10 seconds to choose your answer. Okay, let's see who's got it right. Of course, exclusive is a cyber and cloud specialist. And we will now see who's leading. Okay, so Nizar has scored the highest so far. We have 4 more questions. Thales SafeNet Trusted Access protects cloud applications by. You have the last 3 seconds. And of course, the answer is all of the above, all of the options basically. And let's look at who's the winner. So we have Ahmad winning as of now. Nizar is second. The next question. And here are the options, and I think we have another 13 seconds more to answer. Okay, so it's access on-prem application, and let's see who's got it right. Oh, quite a few, but Ahmad is still leading. Moving to the 4th question. And these are the options. Last almost 5 seconds left. Let's see the answer. It's all of the above again. And Ahmad is leading. Nizar is also almost there. Let's see. We'll figure out who's the winner in the last two questions. This is simple. What is the full form of OTP? And of course, the answer is one-time password. And let's see who all have got that right. Okay, so it's Ahmad, and again, Nizar second, and Ali. So let's see the final one. And here are the options. And we have the last 5 seconds. Okay, so of course it's all of the above, but let's see who are the top 3 winners. So we have Ali on number 3. We have Nizar, second position. And I think we all can guess the first winner. Of course, it's Ahmad. Congratulations to all our winners, and runners-up have done a great job as well. Congratulations, and as I mentioned, marketing team at Exclusive will get in touch with you tomorrow or perhaps in another 1 hour's time. And now I'll pass on to our organizer, Mr. Arun, to carry the session forward. Thank you once again, and Arun, I invite you.
So thank you, Malika. Absolutely fascinating quiz and turnout, absolutely fascinating presentations. The integration with Thales and F5, absolutely in tune with current dynamics of digital transformation. A lot of end users worry about cloud security, multi-cloud security. So I invite Dana also, if you are online. Would you like to participate in the questions? So if you are online, kindly switch on the webcam. Thank you. Thank you. So we have a few questions which have come in from the end users. I think one of them to backtrack is on SafeNet access. So Dana, this was essentially coming from the question says that we saw hybrid, we saw on-premise. How does this work for multi-cloud? Go ahead, and any of the others. So Dana, I think you're still on mute. If you can unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
It's fine now. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, could you just repeat the question, because you faded out just for one second there, so I didn't get
sure.
the full
So
question.
I said, yeah, basically you showed the various cloud portals. I think the question over there is that if the end user is in a multi-cloud environment, how does the Thales SafeNet access policies, can it work in a multi-cloud environment? And then we can go to F5 also. How would you actually do it? Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, SafeNet Trusted Access supports federation protocols such as SAML and OIDC. So any cloud-based application and any modern application actually that supports SAML can be easily federated with SafeNet Trusted Access and then incorporated into an access policy. So this is exactly where modern authentication can be applied to cloud applications and dozens and dozens and dozens of cloud applications as organizations adopt more and more cloud applications. And I think we saw it very well in the demonstration that Serge gave. He showed just 2 or 3 additional cloud applications that were federated with SafeNet Trusted Access, in addition to how we federate with the F5. So you could theoretically have a situation where that user portal could populate dozens of applications depending on which applications an organization is using.
Very interesting. Yasser, anything you would like to add over there?
Yeah, not much, but I would like just to again to mention that our F5 goal is to basically serve customers' application no matter where they live, being on-prem or in the cloud. The F5, we have invested a lot in our platform. So we offer lots of platforms, starting from the physical platforms and virtual platforms that can run on-prem, and also the platforms that can be running in the different multi-cloud environments like AWS and Azure and Google. So we can sit in front of the applications no matter where they live and provide all of these application services, including the access and identity management, especially for the use case of the integrating with the identity as a service and ensuring that the users have authorized access, especially for the applications, which is the legacy applications that might not support SAML protocol, for example. So we can sit there and enable SAML for them. And then we do single sign-on using the old authentication method that these applications might be using, like header-based or Kerberos, etc.
This was coming from Serge's demo. I think the question says that we did not see the audit trails. Where are they saved after the end is closed? I guess you did show some of the active audit trails. What question is, where are they saved when the session is closed? Go ahead, Serge.
I couldn't hear well your question because the voice wasn't very clear. Can you please repeat the question, Aaron? I cannot hear you.
So I think it's related to your demo. I think towards the end you did show some audit trails. You're not here?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I can. Yeah,
okay, I'll put it in the chat. Let's move to the next question.
No, I can hear you. I can hear you now.
Okay, so it's basically saying when the. Okay, sure. So when the session is closed, where are the audit trails saved?
Yeah, actually, it's in the same dashboard that I was showing. There is the access logs and the audit logs. So I can show as well if you want my screen. But on the SafeNet Trusted Access, on the same dashboard interface, there is the dashboard in general, which shows all the total number of access user, as well as the access logs, the active one and the one that were disconnected, as well as the audit logs that shows the timestamp, the user ID, the IP address of the user, in which organization he is, the action taken, and all the administrative logs took by the administrator user as well. Same for F5. Same applies for F5, by the way.
Okay. Dana, anything you want?
I think Serge described it very well. The logs are, yeah, all the logs are accessible and stored on the server. Yeah.
Sure. Another question from the end user is about the cloud licenses. How do we subscribe them? Is it direct from the portal or is it through the resellers? I guess this is more of a sales question. We would like to take that.
Actually, is it for F5 or for Thales? Is it a question for F5 or Thales?
It's saying for both, so F5 and SafeNet. Okay.
I'll take first. Well, one of the nice things about SafeNet Trusted Access is that the licensing model is very, very transparent and easy. You have one user license, includes unlimited support for all cloud applications and all the applications that can be federated and protected by SafeNet Trusted Access. The license includes all authentication methods, and you can also, including free hardware tokens, and it also can include multiple software tokens, which means that a user can have a software token the same one that Serge demonstrated on a tablet, on a desktop, on a mobile phone, and they can have the same user experience logging in from multiple devices to all of their cloud applications.
Okay, great. Anything on F5 from your side, either Serge or Yasser?
Yeah, for the licensing for the F5, we provide evaluation license on top of our virtual edition, which we can generate, or our distributor, Serge, can generate those licenses as well. And of course, we can assist on the technical part of the product configurations as well.
Yeah, that's a good thing to add.
Okay, great. So I think we.
Sorry, everyone, just to
Go ahead.
good to know. Yeah, good to know that Exclusive also have the capability to set up a trial for SafeNet Trusted Access as well. So they're fully set up for that.
Okay, fantastic. So actually, we are going to be running short of time. We are quite a few minutes over the time limit. So I'd like to close with basically inviting you to give your key takeaways, recommendations, any thumbnails for any guidance for the end users. So starting with you, Dana, go ahead, please.
I think the most important thing for end users is to really have a very easy, consistent, and unified login experience to all of their applications. And the ability of an organization to provide that to end users helps with productivity. Users don't have to figure out, start remembering their passwords, submitting requests for password resets. And it also helps you maintain security, because users who don't have to remember passwords will always remain secure. They don't write down passwords anyway. They don't look for security workarounds. So it's a win-win situation for organizations and for end users.
Thank you, Dana. Yasser, over to you. What would be your key takeaways, your recommendations? Go ahead.
I would say that in this modern environments, applications require lots of application services. This can be application delivery services or application security services. F5 today provide the broadest number of application services, from load balancing to WAF to identity and access management to DDoS. All of these services are available for your applications on different platforms to serve the applications that run on-prem or the applications that run in the public cloud. And with a different licensing model to fit different business needs, like perpetual licensing or consumptions, subscriptions-based licensing, or even pay-as-you-go type of licensing. So this is basically what differentiates F5 or the key takeaway out of this session today.
Thank you, Yasser. Serge, anything from your side, hands-on, any guidance over there? Go ahead.
Yeah, so actually from my side, I would say that the application nowadays is the business identity of any company in the world, especially not only the published application, the corporate application, where F5 and Thales can secure these kind of corporate application if they are sitting on the cloud, on-prem, in a hybrid environment. So with these integrated solution together, if you are working with modern application as well as legacy application, you have a complete solution which is fully integrated and in a very easy way, as I showed in my demonstration, that can be installed in any environment and can show that the user is accessing his the corporate application securely with a full visibility from the administration perspective, as well as based on identity and based on context when we are accessing the corporate application. Thank you.
Interesting. I think, thank you, Serge. It's been an absolutely fascinating 1 hour, 30 minutes. I really like the approach from the Thales solution, because today digital transformation, remote working is right on the top of, and securing remote workers is right on the top of the CIO's agenda. I think the solution looked absolutely interesting, especially because we have cloud first and multi-cloud as a key strategy for all CIOs to push forward in these times of challenging macroeconomic environment. So with that, we come to the end of this absolutely fascinating session. On behalf of Global CIO Forum, F5 and Thales, and speakers here, Dana, Yasser, and Serge, I thank all the attendees for sitting through these 60+ minutes, absolutely engaging content and discussion. Look forward to seeing you once again. Goodbye, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.